This is probably the most honest and transparent thing that I have ever done. But it is my goal to introduce you to this podcast in the most genuine and authentic way, with the hopes that you will be willing, as my listeners, to come along this journey with me. My name is Chimere Brown, and I have had the unfortunate experience of learning that life does not always go as planned. For example, it was my life plan to go to the college of my choice, get a degree in chemistry, chemical engineering, move to New York, become a cosmetic chemist, get married, and have kids all before the age of 25. Now, that may be someone's life, but it is not mine. The funny thing is, I didn't have a plan after 25. I don't know if I thought I would be so content that I wouldn't need anything else after I got married and had those kids, or if I thought I would turn into vapor, or maybe I would figure it out as life continued. But either way, I did indeed go to my preferred college of choice. I double majored. I was actually a dual degree engineering, chemistry, chemical engineering. But throughout my collegiate career, I had a really difficult time acquiring internships. And when I did graduate, I had an equally difficult time finding full-time employment. Now, when I did get a job, it was a contract role at a pharmaceutical company, which meant I didn't have salary, I didn't have benefits, so I had to supplement my income working the night shift at a retail jewelry counter. After 3 years in that contract role, it was finally up for permanency. And I just knew that I had proven myself and I worked hard enough to be a contract to permanent hire. But the joke was on me because that job went permanent and I did not. I was laid off shortly thereafter. I was actually forced to train the person they gave the permanent role to on my way out the door. Little did I know that would be the first of 6 layoffs that I would experience. I am actually laid off now. And I have honed in on a cycle of layoffs that I have experienced every 3 to 4 years since 2009. This is my crossroads moment. Now, what does that mean? That is that critical turning point where you start taking inventory on your life and assessing the role that you played in the outcome on where your current standard or standing is in life. It is also my turning point where I am deciding to do something different, come out of the shame, come out of the embarrassment. And how do I turn this pain and discouragement into purpose and triumph? I want you to ask yourself, what is your crossroads moment? Are you currently in your crossroads? Have you come out of your crossroads? Are you approaching a crossroad? And how are you navigating those emotions? That is what this podcast is about. I will be interviewing resilient everyday people, from corporate leaders to community builders, who transformed their biggest crossroads into their most profound calling. And my hope is that you can pull some how-to, some lessons learned that will help you along your individual journeys. This is my crossroads. I'm doing something different. And I want you to not stay in the pitfalls of life, but I want you to come out triumphant and be able to one day, if not today, experience your own individual victories. My name is Chimere Brown, and allow me to formally welcome you to Crossroads and Callings. Welcome. You are listening to Crossroads and Callings, and I am your host, Chimere Brown. So what is a crossroad? By my definition, it is the pivotal turning point in life where you disregard your old ways of doing things and embark on something new. This is season 1, and the theme is called The Found Path. I am here with Rendel Solomon to take a deep dive into his career and crossroads in his life that led to his calling of philanthropy, entrepreneurship, and community. Rendel Solomon is the co-founder of InHeirit, an online startup designed to make the estate planning process more efficient and accessible and affordable for millions of Americans. You have accomplished a lot, but as you know, the title was Crossroads and Callings. I really want to hone in on that pivotal moment that kind of transcended you to where you are now and kind of gave you, like, what gave you the heart for the people? And we'll start there, and then we'll just take the conversation forward.
You got it. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the show, Chimere. I love the name Crossroads and Callings because it definitely speaks to the journey, a meaningful journey that I've had in my 46 years here. I'll be 47 in November, which is hard to believe.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you so much. Let's start with, I think, the last question, this idea of giving and wanting to support and help others. It was something instilled in me very early in my childhood. My late mom and my dad. I recall a story about personal story, so it's not really a story. It's because it was an experience. But I used to ride a long bus ride to get back and forth to high school from the west side of Chicago. And every once in a while, there'd be a person or woman, typically, who was older. And the bus was crowded and wanted to sit down. I knew I had to give that seat up. Right?
Yeah.
I was trained that way. Again, giving of yourself. That's just a slight example. And I do recall one particular instance where that woman may have given me $1 or something like that. And so I came home and I told Mom, I said, look, Mom, I got this $1. She said, how'd you get that? I said, I gave up my seat on the bus. And she said, and you kept that lady's $1? And so that let me know you don't do things for people for personal gain and for personal benefit. You do it because it's the right thing to do. You do it to be supportive. And so that crossroad, one of the more recent crossroads around leaving my career, which we'll dive into in a bit, was around the fact that when you're working a job, corporate or otherwise, you're putting in a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of hours, which means that because there's only 24 hours in a day, 168 of them in the week, the ways of giving back, unfortunately, become limited for folks who are working significant hours, at least in terms of personal time.
Yeah.
So what do they do instead? They just donate money. And I didn't feel like simply donating money to organizations was my path, was my calling. I wanted to be more engaged, more involved. And that's what sparked the One Stock, One Future initiative. I had been doing workshops and sessions with young people through the Chicago Urban League and other organizations, teaching them about the basics of stock investing from a young age. So I came up with this organization just to give away stock to kids. So that was one of my first crossroads right there, or one of my most recent crossroads.
I want to talk a little bit about your mom, because I think Black people say home training, and it's clear that she gave you a really good foundation of home training, but you also said this was your late mother.
Yes.
So was One Stock, One Future a way of turning your grief into purpose? Or how did the loss of your mother kind of play into the other kind of philanthropic things that you've done?
Either you're really good at what you do or you just accidentally stumbled into a question that ties very well to my mother and to One Stock, One Future. So I'm
an active listener.
I love it. So Mom passes 2006. I'm still living in New York. I had finished business school. I'm working as an entrepreneur in the music business, and I'm struggling doing that, right? Broke is a joke, as they say. And so come back home, manage that process with my sisters and family. And then I head back to New York because, again, one of the things that Mom told us was not giving up. If you want to try something, you keep going. And so I was like, you know what? She wouldn't want me to give up on this dream of managing artists in the music business. And I didn't. So I went back. I stayed in New York another year and change. And it didn't work out, unfortunately. Artists don't make a lot of money. And so therefore, if you're the manager of an artist and all you get is a percentage of what they make, A percentage of zero is a really low number. I think it's probably zero.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. My artist was super dope. He just wasn't going to be a multimillionaire type artist.
Okay.
So I left New York, came back to Chicago, and sort of resettled. And that's what started me in the private equity business at Muller and Monroe. And fast forward, not long after I returned to Chicago, my niece Cadence is born. So my sister Quinessa had the first baby of the family. This would have been my late mother, who passed in 2006, would have been her first grandchild.
Wow.
Crazy story about that. When Quinessa first told me that she was expecting a baby, the due date was the exact date of our mother's passing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. So she told me summer of 2007, she told me she was expecting. I go home, moved back to Chicago November, December 2007. Mm-hmm. She had learned that the due date was February 19th, 2008. Mom passed February 19th, 2006.
Dare I say it's like a gift,
It's
right?
a gift. You lose one life, you gain another. So we get to February. I'm living with Quinessa at the time because I was sort of resettling my life in Chicago from New York. And so I'm there when my little niece arrives. I'm laying down. She's at the hospital. Got to meet my little niece when she came home a few days later. And she ended up arriving on February 21st. She blew right past the 19th.
Okay.
Didn't want to come into the world just yet.
And she wasn't ready.
So her birthday is 2 years and 2 days to the date of our mother's passing.
Oh, wow.
How does that connect to One Stock, One Future?
Yeah.
Cadence was the inspiration for One Stock, One Future. My now 17-year-old niece, who's an amazing young lady. I bought her stock in Nike, Apple, and Disney in 2008 as a just a gift. Doting uncle, proud of his little niece, doing well in school. Let me get her engaged in stocks early. And her reaction and response to that sparked this idea that while we want kids to understand financial literacy and financial education, they get enough school. I'm going to get on. So they're in school all the time, and we keep adding more programs and classes and other stuff for parents to have to take them to on the weekends and at night. And it's a lot. It's a lot for these young people. And I said to myself, what if I just gave them stock? No classes. No, you got to get an A in the class.
Yeah.
No, you got to take this test. Just turn them into an owner. And so that's how One Stock, One Future came about. So while it wasn't necessarily about processing the grief, it was looking at past that crossroad of mother passing and rethinking life and purpose. Because up until that point, I was always thinking about my life and my success and my career based on how can I help my family and my mother. But now she's gone. So it's like, well, why am I doing all this stuff?
So it was like it gave you a generational mindset.
Yeah.
Wow. I do want to circle back because I've experienced a layoff involuntarily, but you left the comfort of corporate and you were doing really well, like making them millions.
I wasn't making millions for our listeners.
But you were making them
the company,
millions.
The company was managing $1.2 billion when I left.
Which they saw you as a value.
Let's say that.
Okay. And you said, you know what? I'm done. What was that moment like? Because we're in a time frame where a lot of people are trying to hold on to jobs. Of
course.
Even if they're unhappy. But you were brave enough to step out on faith in the middle of a pandemic, because it still was a pandemic going on.
It was.
Could you walk us through like that train of thought and maybe even any planning or strategies? Or did you not have a plan?
So it was not an instantaneous decision. You're right. It was not a sudden out of nowhere decision. It was something that had been building up for years, actually. And so you talk about the bravery and finding the courage. And you're right. There is a level of courage it takes to step away from a job when you don't have something lined up, let alone one in the industry where I was. Like private equity, people are clamoring to get into that area of finance. It's one of the most lucrative. It's one of the most sought after. It's one of the hardest to get into. And over the 4 years prior to 2020, back to what I was saying about giving back, things you may want to do outside the office, how you want to spend your time outside the office, the people you want to spend time with, the things you want to do, the things you might want to say publicly or otherwise. And we'll circle back to current times and why that's important. But I'm working in a space where there are strict regulations. There's the idea of being constrained in what you say and what you do outside the office, because Rendel Solomon, the private equity investor, was no longer separate from Rendel Solomon, the uncle, Rendel Solomon, the grandson, Rendel Solomon, the poker player, Rendel Solomon, the friend. Whatever it is Rendel Solomon is not at work It's all blended together. And over time, that started to become too much for me. I've sort of found myself being this budding activist in my own way. I'm not saying that I was out at the protest every week, but I was becoming a budding activist in my own way, trying to use the little platform I had to bring awareness and attention to issues that I found significant. And if my viewpoint on one of those issues conflicted with either the job or people at the job or clients, I ran the risk of then alienating myself in that. And so I was trying to be proactive in saying, I was at a crossroad, just to use your Bone Thugs and Harmony used to be one of my favorite artists, by the way. And so I was literally at a crossroad, Chimere, and I said, if I stay on this path, I'm going to be limited. I'm going to be constrained. It's going to create stresses and pressures emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically that I don't want in my life. And in order to manage that, I essentially had no choice but to step away and rethink what it is I wanted to do. So to your second part about having a plan, the answer is no, because it was hard to formulate a plan given the stresses I was experiencing. So I needed to be completely untethered for at least some time period to give myself the freedom and the space to think about the calling part of my life. And I don't even know that I found it yet, but what I feel confident in is that when you're in that space of corporate and you're making the money, the calling stuff becomes a faded, blurry vision because you got to focus on the day-to-day of the job. You need to cut that stuff out. And dare I say, had I not left, I'm not sure I'd be married for 4 years right now. I'm not sure I'd have a beautiful daughter at 3.5 years old, because there likely would not have been space for that in Rendel Solomon, the private equity world.
So if I can summarize what you're saying, you stepped away because you wanted to maintain your individuality and your voice. And being connected to such an esteemed company, which makes sense. It stifles that because you have to mind your P's and Q's, and now you're a standalone man. But what did you do for money?
Well, the good news is, actually, for the next 3 years post leaving that job, I was still able to pull in 6 figures.
Okay.
So again, people use 6 figures as a cutoff. I was doing better than just 6 figures.
Okay.
So I definitely did not make the same amount I did, but part of it is a mindset shift around money, capital, sources, and uses, meaning I can't necessarily travel the same way that I was when I left there. I couldn't, granted it was a pandemic, so some stuff was cut back anyway. So we were all forced to kind of rethink life, money, purpose, career. So I just happened to do my step away at a time when everyone was rethinking what's going on. Everybody was asking themselves, damn it, if I'm not here tomorrow, is this job the thing I want to be remembered for?
Exactly. I think that was it was the COVID mindset, dare I say, because people were dying and not making it home and losing elders. Like you said, is this the last thing I want to be known for? But you said that you were still looking for your calling, and I still admire you, because to be married and unemployed and making babies, you get braver and braver as the conversation goes on. But how does that play into the birth of InHeirit?
So this is November 2020 when I leave the company. I spend about the next couple of months at least just sort of finding my footing and refiguring out life, purpose, the things mom taught me, the things I learned along the way, job, career, happiness, success, like how do all those things fit together? So I spent some time rethinking that. And then I talked to friends and advisors about what's out there. What might I consider? I'm in this space where we live in a capitalist society. I know I need some level of income just to get things paid for.
Exactly.
But I'm also trying to maintain this spiritual excitement and happiness and usefulness and sense of purpose in the world. And so I just started having conversations. And what happened is, and while I'm not the most religious person, I'm somewhat spiritual. I'm refinding my spirituality, attending church again. Things just started happening. And so
expound on that when you say things.
I give an example. So one of the people that I reached out to after I left, as I'm trying to figure out what it is I might do next. Slight humble brag coming, but I reached out to Robert Smith.
Okay.
Who,
and for those who don't know,
he is the founder of a company called Vista Equity Partners, one of the largest private equity firms in the world. He happens to be a Black man. And I was able to reach out to him because I had connected during my time in private equity. I introduced him as a speaker at a Columbia Business School conference where I attended. And so I felt comfortable enough to just reach out and say, hey, I've left my job. He knows the company. He knows I need to consider what I might do next. And I didn't call him looking for a job. I called him looking for some guidance. And that led to him including me on a project where he wanted to give away some stock to kids.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
And so for the next several months, I just kind of worked on that project with this team that he had put together. And so that was kind of cool, right? And then that led to connecting with a financial technology startup. And I started working there for a while because that financial technology startup was the app that we were using to give away the stock to the kids so they could have a brokerage account to hold the stock. So I worked at that place for like a year. And then that led to me doing, not that led to, but I also then started doing some advisory work with a couple of private equity and venture capital firms who were trying to raise money. So as you can see, I'm still in and around money, but in a way where I can kind of control the narrative a bit. And those things did provide income, but yet it provided the flexibility. Again, we're COVID, I'm working remotely, I'm at home. It provided more of that flexibility. They weren't 40, 50, 60, 70 hour a week contract opportunities. They were more, like I said, contract opportunities that didn't require full-time effort necessarily. So I could have some income, but still have that flexibility to do the other things and not feel constrained. Robert Smith connected me to a gentleman named Michael Render. Most might not know that. That's the government name for a rapper named Killer Mike, who happened to just win 3 Grammys this past year.
He shouted you out in a song.
Shouts me out on his album about, talking to Rendel about getting some money. And I thought that was kind of dope, right? So these connections just kind of came out over time. Once what's the saying? Let go and let God. I just kind of let go of what I thought I knew. And what I thought I knew was go to school, work hard, get good grades, get a job. What I didn't realize is that even if job goes away, there's still a lot of other stuff to do.
Yeah. So I think I really want to stop there for a moment, because I think we were also that narrative. If you go to school, you get a job. If you do the right things, then it's supposed to work out. And then you live a little bit of life and you realize that even though you can do everything that is seemingly right, then life can still be really wrong and deal you an unfair hand. It seems like you found your passion in finance and giving back and was able to convert that to like a bigger calling and purpose. How did you find that as your niche, or niche, depending on how you say the word?
Just to make sure I understand, niche in terms of the finance piece?
Yes. How did you know that this was your thing?
Yeah.
And then that is where your calling would be. And then everything you build around it seems to touch money.
I got you. So kind of fell into that, Chimere. I'm an engineer by degree. So,
I know, likewise.
So electrical engineering at Tulane, then went to work at Procter & Gamble, then worked in the music business after getting my MBA at Columbia in New York. So none of that screams finance, right?
It does not.
At all. And so my first foray into financial services officially was the private equity job that I got through my mentor at the time. It was his firm. So when I was leaving New York, so there's a power in relationships where I just said, look, I got to come back to Chicago. I'm in New York. I'm 28 years old. I'm going another crossroad. I'm turning 30 in a couple of years. I can't be in New York struggling at 30. I spent 4 years in my 20s there. I had my time in New York. So he opened up a spot at the firm. And so that was my introduction to private equity and finance in a formal way. In terms of managing my own money or helping others, along the way, there were some things that I had to manage personally that gave me some insights into the importance of personal finance. Like that experience in New York, lots of student loan debt, lots of credit card debt, credit score crashed, right? Very little income that I had in New York working as an artist manager. And so I was forced to to learn more about credit. Despite my academic abilities in school, the money conversation didn't really happen anywhere. And so I'm having to fix my credit score, and I wrote the letters, and I called, and I did this and did that, and took my credit score from low 500s to over 800 over the next few years. And so then that experience led me to having conversations with people about what they were experiencing with credit. Because what I learned along the way is that despite our academic success, the financial piece a lot of us did miss out on, whether we're first generation or second generation college, where Henry's, you know what the term Henry means, acronym?
No, that sounds like an old school saying.
It is kind of old school. High earning, not rich yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I hear it as, I got it, I'm going to spend it.
I got it, I'm going to spend it. You're making a lot of money, but you ain't really got a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And so then what happens with that, all the same problems of not having money, not all the same, but some of the same problems, poor credit, don't understand this, don't understand that. So that led to some more personal conversations. And then I already told the story about cadence and stock and starting One Stock, One Future. So you're right. There are just these steps in my journey that have come back to money in some way.
Yeah.
And working in the industry I was in, that gave me a 30,000 foot view, maybe even higher, like stratosphere view of money. And I started to piece together, how does my late mom's experience making her $40,000 a year as an admin at a railroad company connect to the $80 trillion of capital being managed around the country? And so I started asking questions about how capital flows, which communities get it, which people get it, who gets the job, who gets the house, who gets the land, who gets the real estate development, who gets the startup money, who's able to build a business, right? And the more I started thinking about those things, it goes back to what you just said at the beginning of this segment, which is you do all the right things, but then the right things still don't happen.
Yeah.
And we see it with people in trying to buy homes. We see it in people trying to start businesses. They're doing all the things they're supposed to do. And if we're going to be really blunt and direct, it's people of color. It's Black people.
Yeah.
It's Hispanic people. It's women. They're the ones who are doing the right things, but it's still not positively happening for them. I saw it happen at the firm where I was working. Doing the right things, money still not flowing in. And so the more I began to think about macro issues of oppression, I began to focus a little bit less on the micro aspect. What do I mean by that? If there's a force pressing down on a group, we can keep telling the people feeling the pressure to push up harder. And that's what I feel happens with Black people.
Yeah.
We just get told to work harder, run faster, do better at the job, as opposed to saying to the pressure, whatever you want to call that pressure. For now, let's just call it white supremacy. But there could be some other things we could call it. But what about getting rid of the pressure? Wouldn't that do more for our people as a whole? Rhetorical question, but wouldn't that do more if we could somehow remove that barrier as opposed to simply telling the Rendel Solomons or the Chimere Browns of the world to find the little hole and let someone pull you through? Because for all intents and purposes, we made it. But then what happens? We get let go. Or we feel such pressure while we're in there, we don't even feel safe anymore. So we leave despite the financial benefits. So that's how I'm rambling a little bit. I apologize, listeners, but the capital piece and finding a calling, they worked together to lead me to this place of saying, okay, I want to have a good balance of, I have to manage my own resources and things I have to get taken care of, and I want to be able to support others. So is there a way to combine that? And InHeirit, which you asked about, startup focused on online estate planning, is the next level of that. Still in the financial area, but sadly has to do with when we're not here. A lot of my prior work has been on helping people manage assets or build their assets. This is about how do you pass it on efficiently and effectively.
Could you give the listeners like a 30-second commercial about what InHeirit is? Because I mentioned it, you mentioned it, but I really want to hone in on what it is and what it's meant to do. Because it seems like your whole journey from the One Stock, One Future, even from like learning from your mother, One Stock, One Future, working at M2, all of those roads have really been leading you here.
Feels like it has.
Yeah. So I want to talk about what the here is and why that's important.
You got it. One thing we all know is that unfortunately we're going to leave this earth at some point. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know the time, the place, or what happens afterwards. As a survivor, in terms of having to manage the loss of someone and figure out their affairs, I, along with millions of others, have a unique appreciation for the importance of planning for that moment. And while I didn't necessarily appreciate it at the time, fast forward, almost 20 years past my mom's passing and joining up with co-founders Aston and Amanda, who had started this company about a year prior to me coming on board, recognizing that the idea of estate planning, getting your affairs organized, and then documenting clearly what you want to happen when you're not here is something that is lost on the vast majority of Americans.
Very true.
Right. So
Yes.
that's a problem statement right there. And there are billions of dollars just lost because people didn't make a plan. And when I say lost, I mean it just doesn't stay in their family. So it's not lost. It's just lost to the family because it's going to go somewhere. Those assets go to the government. They go to creditors who come in. They go to people who file lawsuits and take their piece of it. It goes to attorneys. Like it's going to everybody else but the grandkids or the kids or the charitable organization because it was never documented. So what InHeirit is, it's an online estate planning platform that allows people to organize and plan for that inevitable moment, giving them the tools and the resources to start the conversation first and foremost, to then secure their legacy by organizing those assets and documenting them in powers of attorney, wills, and trusts, and then ultimately allowing everybody to get back to joy a little bit faster because grief can last a very long time, and it only becomes greater when you're also dealing with what happens with the house, and arguing with cousins and uncles and aunts about what happens with grandma's house, or you had a prior marriage and now the ex-wife who you didn't take off a document and the current wife are fighting over, and then the kid from the first marriage doesn't get something that the new, and so you have all these other issues that again don't allow everyone to get back to joy while trying to manage the grief of losing someone.
I'm glad that you have that platform in place. I had a recent experience with my grandmother. We went to the funeral home and she paid for her funeral. And I will say this. Those institutions make money off of your grief.
Yeah, man.
They can sell you a blade of sand when you are distraught. And it was a very emotional experience for me to go to the funeral home with my grandmother, literally pick out her casket, what she was going to wear, the car, like the plot of land, the whole funeral process I planned with my grandmother in tow. And even though I was emotional and I was crying because I am a granny's girl to the core, I was thinking to myself, what kind of love is this that all you want me to worry about in your absence is dealing with the loss of you? Because everything else is already mapped out. It's literally how she wanted. How do you know how she wanted? Because I sat with her and we went through the process. So I'm sharing this to say that there's an importance for things such as InHeirit. And I think you have a different appreciation for your journey when you begin, the purpose begins to kind of flourish. So we talked about your journey, some things you planned, some things you didn't. Where are you now emotionally? Are you content? Are you grateful for everything that you've been through? Or, are there some things that you aren't quite settled with at the moment?
That's a great question. So there's an old movie called Mr. Destiny. And I don't know if the listeners recall that one. And it's about a guy who is upset about his life and where he is. His marriage, his job, his kids, just and he makes this sort of wish. It's like, if only I had hit that home run in that baseball game. That's a true aspect of the movie. Yeah,
I remember this movie, yes.
He connects everything in his life back to that moment where he struck out in baseball. He's like, what if I had hit that home run? And so the movie plays on I think it was Michael. I forget the actor's name. He's played one of Batman's
Was it Michael
butlers.
Keaton? Oh
It wasn't
no.
Keaton. It was one of Michael, one of Batman's butlers in one of the movies.
Okay.
But this guy says, "Okay," snaps a finger, and the guy's life immediately shows him what would have happened had he hit the home run. The woman he would have gotten, the kids he would have had, the job he would have had, and what he saw is that he would have been miserable.
Wow.
And it gave him an appreciation for the life that he had. And so your question reminded me of that story. You asked if I'm content. In a sense, I kind of have no choice but to be content, because this is the life I have. And I'm going to own it. I'm going to love it. I'm going to appreciate it, because any aspect of that journey that changes, this Rendel Solomon is not sitting here with you right now. So I kind of like this Rendel Solomon.
Okay.
I like Danielle Solomon as a wife. I like Savannah Solomon as a daughter. I like Granny as a grandmother. I like Quinessa as a... And so any point in my journey that changes could dramatically change the outcome of those things, right? Any of those crossroads, from mom's passing to dad's passing to leaving my job to, you know, anything that's happened along the way. You change any one of them, the whole trajectory changes, and the crossroad changes. The calling could change. And so I'm content, but I'm not finished, if that makes sense. Yeah,
No, I love that. I told my listeners that this would be a how-to, because I think social media tends to show all the shiny things and it has this very like positive view. But as we kind of nearing the end of this interview, any words of advice for someone that is currently in their crossroads moment or approaching a crossroads, now that you are where you are in your life journey, what is some advice that you wish you had that you can offer someone else? Or maybe even a strategy like, you know what, when you get to this point, maybe you should talk to a friend or so on and so forth.
I'm going to do what I often hate that other people do when you ask them about words of advice, right?
Because are you going to say something cliche?
So it's not quite cliche, but it's going to border on not being as specific as I think you might want.
I would really like to be as specific as possible, but okay.
But this does connect to me and my life in a way that I think you'll appreciate.
Okay.
So every morning, I'm going to try not to get emotional here, but every morning when we're about to take little Savannah to daycare, I'm typically the drop off and wife is typically the pickup. But when I'm taking her out the door into the garage, my wife stops, gives Savannah a hug and a kiss, and says 4 things to her. Sorry, listeners, if you're watching, I get emotional thinking about my family. She tells Savannah to be bold, to be confident, to be brave, and to be a good listener. And as I think about my journey along the way, especially that first one, especially young Black kids, we often don't tell them to be bold enough. It's that tried and true path that you and I just talked about. Go do those things. Don't make any crazy moves. Just go to the school, get the job, get the grades, make a little money.
Yeah.
Everything else will work itself out. And I think what you and I realize as we've gotten older is that's not necessarily the path, or not the only path. It's worked for some. So we tell her to be bold, to be confident, to be kind, and to be a good listener. And doing those 4 things, while it may not be very specific advice, what I found in my journey is that in the times where I feel a little confused, a little lost, a little scared, somewhere in those 4 things is where I can find peace, is where I can find direction, is where I can find guidance and support.
Okay, say it with me. It's be bold, be confident, be brave, and be a good listener.
That's it.
Wow. I want to thank you, Rendel, for sharing your story with me, also being my first guest on the podcast. I hope you had a great time. I would also like to thank the listeners for listening. And as you're thinking through this, definitely consider your crossroad moment on how you can be bold, be confident, be brave, and a good listener, because you just don't know where the sign is gonna come from.
Right.
And so you just have to be open and really just in tune what's happening around you. As a leave behind, I would like you to either follow us on YouTube, Substack, or any other area in which you listen to podcasts. And lastly, I would like to thank the National Museum of Public Housing, for allowing me to use their space as well as their studio. Rendel, how about you? Anything that they should follow you on or look up InHeirit information?
Absolutely. So you can follow InHeirit on social media at Get InHeirit, GETINHEIRIT, playing on the word air. And you can follow me directly at Rendel Solomon. That's RENDEL SOLOMON. And I want to congratulate you, Chimere,
No, thank
on
you.
this first podcast. Listen, you were bold. You are a good listener. I think you're pretty kind. I think you're pretty kind as well, and you're brave. You've stepped out regardless of the work and career situation, and say, you know what, I'm going to do this because I'm willing to guess you didn't think about this a week ago.
No.
This has probably been on your mind for some time.
Yeah.
In the same way I did stand-up comedy for the first time a few months ago, just because. Be bold, be brave, be confident.
Be confident.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe it's 5 things. Be bold, be brave, be kind, be confident, and be a good listener. So maybe it's 5, but we try to give her those affirmations every day. I want you to do the same. I'll do the same. And I think good things will follow for us and the listeners.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Until next time with Crossroads and Callings.